Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and I thought we would do some more React stuff because there's a few more things to kind of get your foundation going that I'd like to cover. So I still have that same project opened up, so with counter and app. And what I'm going to do is spin up the server, light server. Okay, that opens up the site. Let's see where we left off. And we still have count there, and again you can click count and it adds one. And then after we had it where it's conditional. Cool. A few things I want to show you is first I'd like to show you how to map an element. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another component called, we'll just call it the mapper. Okay, so we'll just say const mapper, so we'll make it a functional component because I just prefer those. Const mapper equals, and I gotta pass in props. Okay, and so let's say we had a piece of data. Okay, so we're gonna say, hey, const my array equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll just pretend like this would be like an array you get from API data. So you have your API, you make your API call and your lifecycle functions, you store that data in your state, and now you want to like show it in your code. Okay, so let's return some JSX. And what you want to do is have, let's say we'll just wrap it in a div. Okay, wrap it in a div, and we're just going to create an h1 for each number. Now let's see here, h1. What we actually want to do is do this. We want to make a map. So what we do is we take the array, which was my array, dot map. So we're going to use that map function that basically returns you a new array based on the old array. Because what we want to do is not return an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We want to return an array of JSX to be rendered. So array.map, the value is the value, and then it's going to render each time h1 value h1. And that should do it. So basically you'll have h1 with 1 and h1 with 2 and h1 with 3. So iterating over values is not so bad. You're just using your normal JavaScript stuff map. Okay, save. Now that's not going to show up yet because we haven't put it anywhere. And actually this should be uppercase M. It's a component, mapper. Save. And let's show you a couple different ways. First, let's just plop it in there so you can see it. So that's one way we could do it. Save. And let's refresh and see. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, we can bring back that other thing. If I do this, hey, I'm here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, generally, if you want to iterate an array value onto the screen, you're not doing anything special. You're just using normal JavaScript. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is you get the JSX to the screen. So you just create an array of JSX, and that does the job. And map will do that, because map creates a new array out of the old array by iterating over it. So I'm basically iterating over each value and creating an array element that's this. So the first element in the array is h1 with a 1 in it, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. Okay, so you can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. And then, if we wanted to be, what we can do, if we wanted to make that conditional, we could pass count as a prop. So we'll pass count from our other component counter. We'll pass it as a prop to mapper. So count equals state.count. So we're passing the actual variable. So it's going to pass it again and change it every time it re-renders because it's a child component. So we pass state.count, and we're gonna pass it, and then what we'll do is we'll do this. State dot, it's not state anymore. Since we passed it to mapper, for mapper, count is props. So it's props dot count. If it's greater than 6, ternary operator. And then what we can do is then put like an H2. So if it's not true, H2 not yet. Cool. So see, if the count is not greater than 6, then I'll say not yet. But if it is, then we'll have our map of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let's take a look. So not yet. So I click and I click and I click and I click and I click. First we get the hey, I'm here, and then I click it again, and I get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ha. So this is where you start passing around data in React. See, I'm passing around the data as props. So it's only state and counter. So technically only counter is re-rendering. But what's counter re-rendering? It's also re-rendering mapper, because mapper is part of counter's JSX. Oops. It's part of mapper's JSX, so it gives it a new prop when it re-renders mapper. So that's why you generally want your state low, because see, it's when we trigger a re-render of counter, it's also triggering a re-render of mapper. That we want, because mapper depends on count. So in that case, we do want those both to re-render. But what if I had another component that has nothing to do with count that is now re-rendering? Because we have it as a child of a component that's being re-rendered. So sometimes that's inevitable. But to the extent that you can limit that, so again, so that way your website renders more efficiently, the better designed website is going to be. Cool. Another way I could have passed in mapper is I could do this. So I'm going to take out this whole count thing for a moment. I could pass it in like this. So over here, where we had counter being passed in to the app component, so we have it passed into app, what I can do is instead make counter look like this, like 2 HTML tags. And then just put mapper in the middle. Cool. So what happens then, mapper is now a child of counter. And you can access the children as a prop. So if I go back down here and I want to put that back in there, I can just go like this. Props.children. Okay, and any children of that element will just plop right there. Okay, but right now this doesn't have a counter anymore, so let me just get rid of this, all this conditional stuff. There we go. Okay, and see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's still there. Even though I didn't put mapper here, instead I just put props.children, and that's there because when I put it in app, it's a child of mapper. So it's still there. I can still kind of put it where I want to put it. But one of the benefits of doing this is that now I could pass it state from app directly. Okay, and the reason I might want to do that is because here's the thing. App has counter, and then before, counter had mapper. So if I had state in app and I wanted to get it to mapper, I would first have to take app, pass it as props to counter, and then counter would have to pass that same information as props to mapper. Okay, so that would be a lot of passing. So one solution is I just do it over here as a child, and I can pass the props here and save that middle step. There are other solutions. There is something called context that allows you to kind of create variables that you can pass in through a whole chain of your tree. So that way you don't have to be passing it as props over and over again. That's referred to as props drilling. But yeah, that's the basic gist. So I think that's a pretty good lesson. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Ciao.